Good evening, everyone. As we gather for today's lecture, we focus on the Socratic method, a method of inquiry that has profoundly shaped how we approach knowledge, truth, and intellectual growth. At its core, the Socratic method is not just a way of asking questions, but a pathway toward self-examination and the pursuit of deeper understanding. Today, we will explore its enduring impact on philosophy, education, and critical thinking. Before we dive into the lecture, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of grounding yourself in the critical dialogues that illustrate the Socratic method in action. I strongly recommend revisiting Plato's Euthyphro, Apology, Credo, and Meno. These dialogues are rich with Socratic questioning examples and will provide a foundation for much of what we discuss today. As always, I encourage you to read the accompanying texts in Plato Reimagined for commentary and further insights into how these methods apply to ancient thought and contemporary discourse. In understanding Socrates' technique, we will see how his way of questioning, whether in pursuing definitions or dismantling false beliefs, pushes us toward intellectual humility. In the Apology, for instance, Socrates' declaration that he knows nothing becomes a powerful tool for dismantling the illusion of knowledge, which is the first step toward real wisdom. Each of these dialogues, especially the Meno and its exploration of whether virtue can be taught, reveals Socrates' method of breaking down assumptions and guiding his interlocutors and us toward deeper philosophical engagement. For those who pursue their studies or wish to study further, the value of reading these primary texts cannot be overstated. They offer an irreplaceable context for truly grasping the subtleties of the Socratic method. Whether you are studying philosophy or seeking to apply these critical thinking techniques in other disciplines, engaging directly with these works will deepen your understanding far beyond the scope of our lecture. If time is an issue, do not worry. We'll revisit many of these dialogues throughout the course, and supplementary materials will continue to enrich your learning. For those on the advanced learning path, your access to additional resources, such as tools for philosophical analysis and monthly discussions, will help solidify their grasp of these texts. I invite you to use these tools to explore your interpretations and challenge your assumptions, much like Socrates would. Let us begin today's lecture by understanding why the art of questioning is at the heart of intellectual and ethical development. Lecture 13, Socratic Method, the Art of Questioning. Today, we delve into one of the most enduring legacies of Socrates, his method of inquiry, now known as the Socratic method. This technique, which is both deceptively simple and profoundly complex, has shaped the course of philosophical discourse and critical thinking for millennia. By the end of this lecture, we will examine the foundational principles of the Socratic method, its applications in ancient philosophy, and its lasting influence on how we interrogate truth, knowledge, and meaning. The nature of the Socratic method. The Socratic method is fundamentally a dialogue, a form of cooperative, argumentative dialogue between individuals based on asking and answering questions to stimulate critical thinking and draw out ideas and underlying presuppositions. The method is famously showcased in Plato's early dialogues, such as the Euthyphro, Apology, Credo, and Meno, among others. In the Euthyphro, 5d6e, for example, Socrates begins by asking Euthyphro to define piety. What seems like a straightforward question soon unravels into a series of contradictions in Euthyphro's responses. Socrates employs his characteristic style, posing follow-up questions that lead the respondent deeper into the inquiry. Rather than providing definitive answers, the Socratic method is designed to uncover ignorance, even in those who consider themselves wise. This process, often called elenchus, or refutation, serves not to humiliate, but to prompt a more profound understanding of concepts through systematic doubt. Socrates begins with a posture of ignorance, a technique often referred to as Socratic irony, ironia. As he states in the Apology, 23ab, he knows only that he knows nothing. Yet this claim to ignorance is not an admission of futility. Rather, it is a method of dismantling false knowledge. In doing so, Socrates hopes to guide his interlocutors, and ultimately the audience, toward intellectual humility and genuine insight. Dialectic as a search for definitions. Central to the Socratic method is the pursuit of definitions. For Socrates, clarity of definition is the first step in the search for knowledge. Take the dialogue Meno, where Socrates famously asks whether virtue can be taught. Meno initially provides a list of examples of virtuous behaviors, but Socrates presses him to define virtue itself, separate from its instances, 71 CD. This shift from specific examples to abstract definitions is a hallmark of the Socratic method. It is not enough to know that something is virtuous. One must know what virtue is, in essence. The search for definitions also emphasizes that philosophical inquiry is not merely about collecting facts or observations, but about understanding the essential nature of the concepts that structure human life. Socratic questioning, therefore, pushes us beyond superficial answers, encouraging a deeper engagement with ideas. In this way, Socrates is not only teaching his interlocutors, but also modeling for his audience the importance of precision and depth in philosophical thinking. However, the search for definitions is not without challenges. In dialogues like the Laches, 192b, 194d, where Socrates discusses the nature of courage, we see that even well-regarded generals struggle to provide satisfactory definitions of the virtues they are supposed to embody. The difficulty of defining such essential concepts demonstrates that knowledge is not as easily attained as it may initially seem. It also reinforces Socrates' point that true wisdom begins with the recognition of one's own ignorance. Socratic method as intellectual midwifery. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Socratic method is the idea of Socrates as an intellectual midwife. In the Theaetetus, 150a, 151d, Socrates likens himself to a midwife who helps others give birth to their own ideas. This metaphor captures the essence of his approach. Rather than imposing knowledge from the outside, Socrates facilitates the process through which individuals discover truths for themselves. His questions act as the labor pains that force the respondent to engage with their own beliefs, refining them or discarding them in the process. This idea of intellectual midwifery is vital because it underscores the collaborative nature of the Socratic method. Socrates does not view himself as a teacher in the traditional sense. He does not fill his students with knowledge, as one might pour water into an empty vessel. Instead, he helps them realize the potential for knowledge that they already possess. This principle aligns closely with Plato's theory of recollection, particularly in the Meno, 85d, 86b, where Socrates demonstrates that even an uneducated boy can remember geometric truths through proper questioning. The significance of this metaphor extends beyond the philosophical. It speaks to the very nature of education and the transformative potential of dialogue. In contrast to didactic teaching, which often imposes knowledge, the Socratic method empowers individuals to discover knowledge within themselves. This is why the method remains a powerful tool for fostering critical thinking and self-reflection. The ethical dimensions of the Socratic method. One of the most compelling aspects of the Socratic method is its ethical dimension. For Socrates, philosophy is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a way of life. His method of questioning is designed to lead individuals toward a more virtuous existence. In the Apology, 38a, Socrates famously declares that the unexamined life is not worth living. This statement encapsulates the ethical thrust of his philosophy. Through the process of questioning, individuals are compelled to examine their beliefs, actions, and lives. The Socratic method forces us to confront the assumptions that underpin our actions and decisions. In dialogues such as the Crito, 48b, 50a, Socrates engages in a discussion about justice, obedience to the law, and individual morality. Through his questioning, Socrates demonstrates that acting justly is not simply a matter of adhering to social conventions, but requires a deep understanding of the nature of justice itself. His questions encourage us to reflect on whether our actions align with our principles and whether those principles are, in fact, just. Moreover, the Socratic method's emphasis on self-examination serves as a form of moral development. By continuously questioning and refining our beliefs, we become more attuned to our own ethical shortcomings and more committed to living virtuously. This ethical dimension is not restricted to the individual, but extends to society as a whole. Socratic questioning promotes dialogue and reflection, which are essential components of a healthy, just society. The impact on critical thinking and modern pedagogy. The legacy of the Socratic method extends far beyond ancient Athens. It has profoundly influenced modern approaches to critical thinking and education. In contemporary pedagogy, the Socratic method is often employed to encourage students to think deeply and critically about the material they are studying. Rather than passively absorbing information, students are encouraged to engage actively with the content, question assumptions, and explore different perspectives. In the legal field, for instance, the Socratic method is a staple of law school education, where students are asked to engage with cases by answering probing questions that challenge their understanding of legal principles. This method, often called cold calling, compels students to think on their feet and develop their analytical skills. The Socratic method's emphasis on critical questioning also resonates with contemporary approaches to scientific inquiry. The method's iterative process of hypothesizing, questioning, and refining mirrors the scientific method, where hypotheses are continuously tested and revised. In this way, the Socratic method fosters an intellectual humility that is essential for progress in both science and philosophy. Conclusion: the enduring relevance of the Socratic method. As we conclude this lecture, it is worth reflecting on why the Socratic method remains so influential. At its core, the method embodies the spirit of philosophy itself, the relentless pursuit of truth through reasoned dialogue. By questioning assumptions, probing definitions, and fostering intellectual humility, Socrates' method challenges us to become more reflective, thoughtful individuals. In the world we inhabit today, where information is abundant, but wisdom is often in short supply, the Socratic method offers a model for how we can navigate the complexities of knowledge, ethics, and existence. It encourages us to question not only what we know, but how we know it. As you continue your philosophical journey, I urge you to keep Socrates' words in mind. An unexamined life is not worth living. Apology, 38a. Through the art of questioning, we come to understand ourselves and the world around us more profoundly, which is, after all, the ultimate aim of philosophy.